As you might know, all of the cells in your body, or the majority of the cells, all contain the same genetic code. However, that genetic code is interpreted differently to give rise to a pancreatic cell or a liver cell or a blood cell. And the way, in part, how that genome, the same DNA sequence, is read by the cell is encoded within the epigenome, which is essentially chemical modifications and structural changes to your genome that provide a roadmap for your cell to interpret the genome in different ways. And so this is how your genome is interpreted to give rise to a pancreas cell versus a liver cell versus a blood cell.
For me, epigenetics is really, it's like how the different cells in the body, which have the same genome, that's what explains how they're different, right? So how can, from the same genome, do you have blood cells and skin cells? And so my definition of epigenetics is really around that. It's really sort of the dynamic genome and the different cell type and how that works.
I think epigenetics is many things to different people. Originally, it really means how the genome, which is the same in almost all of our cells, is read out differently in an organized way to make different cell types, which we need to keep our bodies healthy. And we now understand that this is actually a very complex machine, which involves both moving parts, which we call transcription factors, and also placeholders that actually keep pieces of your genome in different states so that they're easier or harder to read out in particular cells.
So to me, epigenetics is how a cell remembers a choice it makes to silence or activate a gene. So the coat color gene in cats is on the X chromosome, and a female calico cat carries 2 X chromosomes, one of which has the orange gene on its active X chromosome, one of which has black on its active X chromosome. And what the calico cat shows us is very early in development, the cells choose to inactivate one or the other X chromosome, and therefore all cells that come from that original choice keep that same decision. That's the epigenetics. And we end up with patches of black and orange in a calico cat.
Usually explain epigenetics as, it's how the choices we make in our life, how we live our life, whether we exercise or not, what we eat, whether we smoke or not, how that can actually change our predisposition for disease, but not only us, but perhaps even the next generation, so our children or even grandchildren. Because, your DNA doesn't change, but you have this layer of heritable information that does respond to the environment, and it can respond in good or bad ways to impact phenotypes.
Epigenetics is largely what you define it as yourself. It means so many different things to different people. In its original use, it was really talking about cells and the property of cells. In the 1970s, it switched over to a definition which was really based on molecular mechanisms, and I think we've remained there since because we've learned so much about the molecular regulation of the genome. We also have people who are very interested in the idea that there could be non-genetic mechanisms of heritability of different factors about how you are made up. And that's something where we have really good evidence in worms and plants that this can occur. It's very challenging to study in mammals, but it's an emerging field and a lot of smart people are working on it. So what I always say is regards what is the definition of epigenetics, I say use the word and then tell us what you mean by it, and then we won't have any ambiguity.